am really sorry that you cannot see what I can see right now. I'm looking down here at Heidi, who's about to be baptized. I hadn't even started preaching yet, and she's gone to sleep. Jeannie and I celebrate with the clergy of the diocese each year, and we invite them over to our home sometime just before or just early into Advent, and we had 75 over at our house that does not hold that many people. We had a great time, and sometimes you make plans and they don't quite go as you expected, so the fact that we're about to have our garage rebuilt, they were supposed to bring out the big dumpster to start on that the day after our party. And of course, they brought it the day before. And it blocks the entire front of the house. So Jeannie and I have been thinking about maybe decorating it with Christmas wreaths and other things to be a bit more in the spirit of the almost season, because quite honestly, in our neighborhood, Christmas seems to have already arrived. I shared this earlier. I was thinking, that ours is the only house on the street that doesn't have Christmas lights up on it yet. And we always wait at least till Advent before we start the decorating, but it's coming. And so soon and very soon we will get into, along with everyone else, the spirit that keeps drawing us into placing more and more emphasis on taking the darkness and turning it into the light, which is basically what the collect today talks about. Collect is a prayer that collects your thoughts around a theme, and obviously we're starting the season of Advent, so we have both a collect for baptism for Heidi, and then we have the collect for Advent today, and then we have many people who are coming to be confirmed or to be received today. So this is a great day to kind of rehearse in advance the meaning of Christmas. But we're not there yet. So we're in this kind of between place, and as we're waiting for the season to begin to emerge, and we wait a little bit longer, we become more ready for the birth, and we wait a little bit longer, and once again we get more and more ready. Soon the light will spread here, the light will spread in the throughout our neighborhoods, and more especially the light will spread in our hearts. Because if in fact that is the place where the light needs to shine, until we become lit with the light of Christ, we don't have that light to share with others. So today, what a great way to move into Advent, to get to baptize Heidi, to be with family and friends, and also to have these confirmations and receptions into the church. It's a good beginning. So thank you for letting me be part of that. I appreciate the invitation. But I will also say that, sometimes being busy around the Christmas season as it begins to come toward us and being alert are two different things. I had a dear friend, Bob Brody, who was the assistant to the bishop in Tennessee when Jeannie and I were called to come over and to begin our ministry with you 18 years ago. And Bob had been so busy in his work as canon to the bishop, assistant to the bishop, that he had, one of those days, he had a lot of road trips. And he was on the interstate coming back to Nashville and went to sleep. And as he was driving, he went off into the median, down into the median, and obviously it startled him and woke him back up again. And Bob's background is he's like Secret Service. I mean, for real, Secret Service, okay? And so he had been taught how to drive in unusual circumstances. So it woke him up in that moment, and he was actually able to get back up on the road, but realized he had just been busy. He had not been alert. And there is that tendency in this time of the year to just be busy. Jeannie and I made a promise to each other this time. We'll see how it goes. But the promise is, as of December the 1st, we're not going to buy any more Christmas presents. If we haven't done it by now, we're not going to do it. Now, everybody has their own rhythm on that. Trust me, that's not been the case for us in the past. But we're trying to be more in a get-ready mode rather than just be busy. So much of busyness in the world right now. And sometimes we see things that are coming our way and we don't quite know what to do with them. These readings from Jeremiah and the reading from the Gospel of Luke are really kind of troubling readings. They talk about the end of time, basically. It talks about a cataclysmic historical event that has changed the world for the people who were living through them at that time, and the one from Jeremiah is actually added later. And it is about the first time that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. And it is a story that dates from Artery Slam Shut, about 400, help me. Gene, you teach EFM, what's the date of the first temple? Thank you. Well, that's close, 586, that's good. I'm glad. Don't weasel word too much on this. That's good. Okay, and then the second one is the second destruction of the temple, and of course this takes place now over a period of about 600 years that this has happened. Okay? And the people who are living through those two traumatic experiences have found the very center of their faith, the very way they orient to their world, to have been destroyed. The temple is destroyed. The priesthood is destroyed. The people are left on their own, and these disturbing signs that are all around them lead them to, and I think the line is, to foreboding. They're fearful. They're anxious. So a guy named Lamar Williamson, who is a professor of Old Testament, and he said this. He told this story, and I think it's a great Advent story. He said an eclipse took place in a colonial New England town, during which the state legislators panicked and several moved to adjourn. But one of them said, "Mr. Speaker, if it is not the end of the world and we adjourn, we will appear to be fools. If it is the end of the world, I should choose to be found doing my duty. I move you, sir, that candles be brought in." What a great image. In the middle of darkness, what do? Bring in light. That's the image of what we're dealing with today as we begin to move together toward the light of Christ. Not just the Christ candle, but the light of Christ being lit once again within our hearts. So I'll tell you a story. There's a great little book written by a monk named Theophane. And the name of the book is The Tales of a Magic Monastery. So I think it's a good way to begin the church here, telling the story of David's flute out of the book. I went there as a child. There was an old monk under a tree playing the flute. I was fascinated. When he stopped playing, I said, "That sounds like Christmas. Could you tell me a Christmas story?" "Ah," he laughed, "Christmas. I was there. I was there, my boy. Sit down, sit down. The others are tired of hearing my story." You see, it was like this. I had two flutes in those days. One I played during the day, the other at night. The one I played during the day was your ordinary type of flute. The one I played at night was special. It could not be heard by human ears. That way, the shepherds could get their sleep. But the angels could hear it. Yes, the angels heard it, and they would come whenever I played. They would turn out in great numbers. I had quite a few friends among the angels, my boy. Did you have a few angel friends? Well, look, one night when I finished playing, all the angels slipped away except one. He came close. There was a secret in his eyes. He bent over and whispered into my ear, "The big secret, my boy, the big secret." The next evening, I persuaded the other shepherds to come with me. I just told them that a child had been born. Everyone loves children. When we got there, they went right in to admire the child and congratulate the parents, but I just fell flat on my face. What else could I do? Finally, the father pulled me to my feet. "I see you have two flutes," he said. "Would you play for the child?" "No," I answered, "neither of these will do. This one is just for humans, and this one is just for angels." The father laughed. He said, "I see. Well, I am a carpenter, and my father was too. But one of our ancestors was, like you, a shepherd. He used to play the flute. But then, after they made him king, when he felt he could no longer play the flute anymore, he just stored it away. They found it when he died. It has been handed down from father to son these many generations. They say it's for the good shepherd. I've never let anyone play it, but tonight I'm so happy. Here, take it, please, play it. I played. My boy, the angels sure heard it that night, and the stars too. That was my great hour. I called out all the angels and all the stars. Well, that carpenter let me keep the flute. This is it. I'm old now. I'd like to pass it on. But who wants it? They all prefer words. Imagine. They think that they can announce the big secret with words. Today we hear from Jeremiah. We hear of Jeremiah and God's promise to Israel. I will raise up a true branch of King David's line to justly rule the land. This is God's promise, but it is also calling forth from us a response. As this new church year begins, how will we listen to the King who comes to rule our land? Advent means that God is coming in Christ. 1 Thessalonians asks us about the other side of Advent. Are we going forward toward God? It asks God to direct our way to God so that we might be strengthened, confirmed in holiness, made ready to meet the Holy One who comes. Does the way we are being led, does the way on which we are going lead us to God, or does it lead us somewhere else? A prior question to this is, to what king do you listen for truth about your world? In Memphis, I have to admit that most of us have at least listened to Elvis at least once. But the question is not about that kind of music or about that kind of kingship. It is something else. It is about what kind of music captures our hearts. Is it financial? What we used to call King Cotton in the South? Is it vocational? Inspirational, like Dr. Martin Luther King? Is it physical? Think of the wrestler, Jerry the King Lawler. Or is it more personal, our exercise or our diet or the doctors I keep going to see to keep myself alive? Or is it spiritual, so that somehow or another I might become the king of my own life, self-centered, not God-centered? To what king do we listen? To what king do you listen when you seek the truth of your world? Confirmation, by definition, is a public, mature commitment to your baptismal vows. Or to put it another way, you're asked to publicly state, I want to be strengthened for holiness. The big secret has come and will be revealed in Jesus the Christ. On confirmation, you are invited, we are invited to hear the flute being played and to play the flute ourselves so that others might hear in us the music of God. But we must first hear the Christmas song. Then we must decide if we will take the flute offered and learn to play it. And then, with our lives, do it for the sake of others. Our role is now to pick up the flute handed down from generation to generation and play the tune that calls angels, stars, neighbors, enemies, and friends to come, that we may all fall on our faces and adore him, who is to be born in us again. The psalmist recalled God's promise and declared, I set my hope on you. Let us not rest either for look, he is coming. Let us make our song that sounds like Christmas greet him on the day of his arrival. And may you and I be changed from darkness into light, that we might shine on God's behalf in this world that so needs that love and that care and that hope. Amen.